Welcome to the Doctors Making a Difference podcast, where we help physicians to be empowered with the tools they need to be successful in medicine, in finance, and in life. Join us as we highlight doctors and other professionals around the world who are making a difference. Our guest today is Curtis Wilkerson, a medical student, a U.S. Army National Guard officer, and the founder of the Physician's Mind podcast. He interviews exceptional physicians and medical leaders to uncover the principles behind success in medicine, leadership, and life. His mission is to help build a generation of elite medical professionals who strive for excellence in medicine and beyond. I really enjoyed this interview with Curtis. He is really a passionate young man, and he wants to see things change in medicine. Like I've said before to longtime listeners, one of the goals of this podcast is to leave medicine better than we found it. And for sure, Curtis Wilkerson fits that mold. He wants to be one of the best, and he wants to help others identify what success looks like and leave medicine better than he found it. And so I love his enthusiasm. It's a great episode. Stay tuned. We're joined today by Curtis Wilkerson, a unique and motivated medical student. So pleased that Curtis is willing to take the time in a busy medical student life to join us for the podcast. Curtis, would you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely, Dr. Crane. Thank you for having me. I like to answer this question in a three-pronged approach. So what do I do? As of now, I am a second-year medical student. What are some of my hobbies? I really love lifting weights and just fitness in general. And what am I passionate about? I'm passionate about building, and I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. I am the founder and host of the Physician's Mind podcast, where I interview exceptional physicians and leaders in medicine in effort to help people who are ambitious and want to maximize their journey of success. So that's a little bit about myself, sir. Looking forward to our conversation.
Okay, awesome. One of the things that Curtis and I recorded a podcast together several months ago, and I was impressed because most people, when they start medical school, at least most of the time, the people I've spoken with, and I might reflect on my own experience, I'm just holding on by the skin of my teeth, just to make sure we're going to get through this really incredible amount of information to take in, and you have an idea of where this is going to go, but you don't have all the details lined out. And Curtis is a guy who says, I want this to be exceptional. I want to not only be an exceptional physician myself, but I want to help other doctors be unique and take this to a place where we're not just trying to punch the clock and do the work, but we're trying to help really become exceptional and unique contributors to our society. And I thought that was really unique that you have that goal. So I wanted to kind of back up for a second. Curtis, tell us about how you got to this place, because obviously you're a person, you could have done many things, you're bright, and you could have chosen any career. Why medicine?
Why medicine? If I'm being honest with you, when I started my educational journey throughout high school and the beginning of college, I would have never guessed that I would be in medical school today. But it was a accumulation of factors, namely a knee injury that I experienced in high school as a wrestler, combined with a newfound curiosity for anatomy. And one thing led to another. I started college as a nursing major. And while taking anatomy, I realized just how fascinating the complexity of the human body was. And I combined that newfound curiosity with the idea of the potential impact I could have as a physician on future patients who need that expertise. I realized the impact that my surgeon had on my life and how he enabled me to do the things that have made my life meaningful. And I combined the idea of that with my newfound curiosity and passion for knowledge about the nature of human life. And I decided I was just going to go all in and commit to a career in medicine. And another spark that really ignited that flame was a comment made by a family friend. When we were discussing my plans for my future, he asked me, Curtis, what are you going to do in college with your life? And I said, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to go into nursing, and that's what I'm going to do. And he said, nurse, why not go all the way and be a doctor? And by no means is that anything against nurses. I think they're exceptional and we need them. My mother is a nurse in the emergency department, but in my situation, it was a matter of maximizing my potential and realizing if there was more that I could do, then I might as well strive for it and be the best that I can be in that endeavor. So it was an accumulation of those factors that led me to ultimately grinding to get into medical school and being where I am today.
No, thanks for answering. I agree with you. All of our other health professionals, nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, all the entire healthcare team was unique and important. I wouldn't say any of those people has a less important role. I just tell people when people ask me about medicine and why would I choose that versus a different thing, I say, well, it's like being in a big ship. You have all these different things. They're all important. The ship can't function without it, but somebody's got to be the captain of the ship to know where we're going and know all the pitfalls that could happen and the direction, see it 10 steps ahead. And that's the physician. That's the physician is the captain of the ship to say, this is where we're headed. And I can tell you from experience all the different potential pitfalls and things that you can't really see until you've had that kind of experience. And so I agree with you of just really value and honor our colleagues. I think it's awesome that you've chosen to join this brotherhood, this sisterhood of physicians. It's a long road, but it's a really cool place to be. One of the questions, Curtis, I wanted to ask you, this is unique because, again, most of the time when we start medical school, everybody's pretty bright eyed. We have a lot of hope and a lot of enthusiasm, but it's kind of an overwhelming process. You started off as a medical student, but not just as a medical student. You have laid out this groundwork to become an exceptional physician and not only help yourself, but help others. And you started a website, a podcast. You have a vision of starting a conference of exceptional physicians. I want to hear just a little bit more about where do you think this is going and what's your intent by doing all this stuff at this early stage of your training?
Yeah. And I'm going to start by answering with the origin of my intent. When I was in high school, I never imagined that I would be capable of becoming a physician. I was surrounded by bright students. And in college, it was the same. I never really had any special upbringing or any real sign that would lead me to believe that becoming a physician is something that I would be capable of. But tying it back to that origin of when I decided to be a physician, when I decided I was going to conceive what my maximum potential was and strive towards that, I was surrounded by friends who were starting college as pre-med students. And I began to think, if they're all doing it, why can't I do it? And I began to realize that I had a very broad realm of untapped potential within me. And this is something that everybody has. We all have a world of potential within us. And part of my goal with the physician's mind is to help people realize that they're capable of so much more than they think. I started the show after essentially exhausting the resources that I enjoyed listening to via podcast platforms or YouTube. I liked to listen to podcasts and videos about successful physicians, how they matched into a competitive specialty, how they got rich, how they excelled in medical school, whatever it was. I really liked listening to podcasts about those successful people. And I realized, okay, all of the topics that I like to listen to are running thin on these platforms. So I figured, why not start my own? This happened between the time of college graduation and starting medical school. As you mentioned, I'm in the National Guard. I had a military obligation that kind of came up after I graduated college. And while I was intending to start medical school right after college, I ended up having a gap year. So it was during this gap year that the company was created, really out of boredom and out of a desire to connect and learn from other successful physicians. And I had no idea that it was going to be where it is now. And I had no idea it was going to unlock these opportunities. But again, my intent was really to just learn more from these successful people. And as I continued to talk to them, as I continued to network, as I continued to make these connections, I realized, wow, there's massive potential here to have a big impact and to help people optimize their journeys of success. And that's the goal of the platform. And that's really why it started.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. One of the things that we've talked about it in my podcast quite a bit is trying to leave medicine better than we found it. Everybody encounters the circumstances we're in. And sometimes I remember in medical school, sometimes we didn't really talk much about the business side of medicine or the complexity of how much time you're going to spend in an electronic medical record or just quite how much time you're going to spend contending with insurance companies about doing prior authorizations and some of the things that really are difficult about the practice of medicine. And one of the things that I hope through talking to other physicians and highlighting people who are doing exceptional or remarkable things like you mentioned is I hope that we leave medicine better than we found it. And so like we were talking about before we hit record, people like me who've been out of residency for about 15 years and people who've been out for 25 years or 30 years look back and say, what's this going to look like for the next generation of physicians? How are they going to handle the pressures and the complexity of this complicated field? And so that's where you're at, Curtis. It's a really unique time to be in medicine. There's a lot of just a lot of changes and a lot of really hopeful things coming out in the research and development. I guess when you think right now, where do you see medicine heading in the next 10 to 15 years as you go through residency and this beginning arc of your career?
I would like to preface my answer with acknowledging that there are a lot of things that I just don't know. And the trajectory of medicine as a whole is very complex and nuanced beast to tackle. But I'm going to break it down like this. I think regardless of what is going on macroeconomically or in the large scale, speaking to any medical students or early residents, I think a lot of it boils down to understanding that you can control the things that you can control. And outside of that, there's no use worrying about it. Try to change the things that you think need to be changed and just continue to do your best with the cards that you're dealt. Because again, I'm lacking a lot of knowledge in this domain. I don't have a great understanding of macroeconomics of medicine or insurance or things like that. That's beyond me at this time. But my goal is to continue learning about these things. And if at any time I'm faced with a challenging situation, whatever it may be, I'm either going to accept it, I'm going to remove myself from it, or I'm going to change it. And if there's anything I could comment on in response to that question, it would just be that. And mainly that would just be to encourage anybody who might be feeling discouraged by some things they've read or heard of in the news about where medicine's heading. I know there's a lot of statistics that talk about physicians being burnt out and just being unhappy in general in their careers, physicians being burnt out, wanting to leave medicine, or being dissatisfied with their career in general. I would just encourage listeners to continue to strive for excellence personally, despite anything that may be going on around you.
Yeah, thank you for that detailed answer. One of the things that I think is interesting at this particular time is we're living the information age, right? Lots of information coming out. Artificial intelligence or large language models are making it so that all information is at your hands, right at your fingertips. You can access every piece of information that's ever been published just almost instantly because of some of these large language models. So I've had people say like, why would I choose to go into medicine? I'm going to be replaced by AI. Or why would I choose medicine because it's so corporatized? But here's what I think, Curtis, just kind of reflecting back on some of the stuff we said is I think that no matter how you shake it down, human beings still need doctors. Our physiology is the same. The things that we deal with are the disease processes, the things that we know work to help improve health. All that stuff still requires the care, the careful oversight from a physician, someone that understands physiology, understands pathology, and knows how to interact with a human being one on one. That's where healing happens. We're more than just technicians, we're healers. And so I do think there is a real great need for excellent physicians. We shouldn't just become a team of computer technicians. We're supposed to become healers that understand things from this broad perspective. I think physicians will have an even greater role in the future. So I appreciate bright students going into medicine, and I think there's a need for even more as we go forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that AI is going to have a tremendous impact in medicine and the entire infrastructure of everything we do moving forward. But I would encourage everybody to accept it and to utilize it as a tool. I know personally, I've used AI to help me with a lot of literature searches while I'm conducting research. I've had it answer a lot of questions. I've had it help me out as I've developed my business. It's a tremendous tool and it can save us a lot of time. And I recently spoke with, have you heard of the Harvard MD graduate who chose not to go to residency?
I've not specifically, I've had several people who've made that choice, but tell me about this one. What have you noticed?
This guy, Dr. Aditya Jain, he was a Harvard Medical School graduate who basically decided he wasn't going to go into residency because he saw a lot more of an opportunity for himself to impact medicine in general using AI. And of course, this guy's a very brilliant mind. He's a lot smarter than I am, and he goes a lot more in depth. But he has concluded that with AI, he can create infrastructure that will benefit medicine as a whole in our country more so than he could have done via going through the system and becoming a physician himself. And while that's always an option, the point is that it's happening and there are ways that we can leverage it for our benefit and it's not going away. So I think the sooner that we can begin to work with it and learn how to use it, the better.
Are any of your classmates, as you talk to people, are they nervous about being replaced or saying, I can't go to X, Y, or Z specialty because I won't have a job? Again, the large language models, AI, is basically all the world's information on a particular topic immediately available, not necessarily having the wisdom or the understanding of your nuanced situation. But if you're just memorizing facts and being a human computer that can regurgitate information, AI is going to be able to do that for you so efficiently that maybe that would not be a useful part of the system. But being able to synthesize and use that is really key. So my question again is, are some of the medical students or other people you talk to fearful of that, or how are people approaching that as they embark on this career at a time when AI will likely be part of the reality for the foreseeable future?
I haven't noticed any significant concern amongst my peers about AI. In fact, I think there's a generally positive attitude about the positive impact that it can have on our efficiency and how we move around day to day and how we practice. It helps us learn at a much more efficient speed than we could have previously. So generally, I think the attitude has been positive.
Yeah, like you said, use it as a tool. You can go instead of spending 5 hours in the library researching through articles and figuring out if some question has ever been answered, some of the AI models will do that for you in seconds. And it really does make it so that you're not spending so much time just gleaning information, but instead being able to use that information and then take the next step quicker. So I agree with you. I think AI has the potential to be a wonderful tool. We just have to make sure it's developed in a way that doesn't replace the healing nature of physicians. And we don't have patients getting prescriptions and things like that with no human oversight because again, large language models are just that. They really are just taking point A to point B and making connections, but sometimes they get it totally wrong. So I think it's very important to have a physician as at the helm of that.
Agreed.
So another question, Curtis, we've talked a little bit before we hit record about financial constraints. One of the things I hear physicians talk about, especially when they get a few years out of residency, is, boy, I work a lot of hours and I have a lot of expenses and I have a lot of debt. And people find themselves in different trajectories. And sometimes the way you start, that really defines how things are going to be later on in your career. I would argue how you manage medical school and how you manage those first few years after residency has a larger financial impact on your overall financial well-being as a person than maybe even than how you handle your finances when you are 15 or 20 years out of residency. What insights have you gained as you've talked to other physicians who are in this space on managing finances and managing debt and those things? What would you say to your fellow medical students who are in the same thing as they're grappling with all these big decisions?
Yeah, there's no doubt that finances play a very big role in our career as medical professionals, physicians in particular. And admittedly, at this stage of my journey, I am lacking a lot of knowledge on financial expertise, and I'm working every day to develop my financial literacy. But from what I've gathered, not only are there endless resources for us to continue learning about these things so that we can optimize our finances, but it boils down to what decisions we make every day and understanding that those decisions compound over the long term. Like you were talking about previous to when we started recording, there are the medical students who are budgeting in a smart way. And then there are the medical students that you mentioned who are going skiing every other day. Like when you're living on federal student loan debt, that doesn't seem to be the smartest choice. So I just try to operate in a manner that's conducive to long term success, minimizing the debt while also not being miserable day to day living on rice and beans. I find that happy medium and I just go with that because I know I'm going to have to pay off that debt. And there's been a lot of recent legislation that has impacted how students are able to pay for their school. I've been blessed not to have to worry about that. As a National Guard member, I'm getting in-state tuition. My loans don't really exceed that which I need, but I know there's a lot of students that are struggling with that. And there's a lot of people that maybe are in a more challenging position that they were in previously. And again, the macroeconomics of that is over my head right now, but all I would say is that there are so many resources for you to learn about ways to manage your finances and not only be a physician who's financially stable, but really you can be a physician who is extremely wealthy because being a physician opens a lot of those doors. One note of encouragement is that becoming a physician opens a lot of doors for financial opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise. Like I've learned if you want to become a real estate investor, being a physician lends you a lot of opportunities to get involved in these things. And in doing so, you can enable yourself to practice on your own terms and do the things that you want to do because you want to do them, not because you need to do it for a paycheck. And ultimately, having that good financial health enables you to just perform at a better level. So, if anything, I would just encourage people to explore the numerous resources that are out there and try your best to approach your finances with intelligence.
No, that makes sense. One of the things I ponder on this a little bit because like we talked about earlier, I really do think that those first few years after residency have a tremendous impact on your overall financial life. And I remember in medical school, maybe you can relate this with this, maybe other people listening can relate. As I was going through it, taking student loans, it was just kind of crazy. It was almost like monopoly money. Oh yeah, I just signed a promissory note for thousands and thousands of dollars to pay for my life and pay for my tuition. And it's important and I know where it's going, but I just sort of trusted, okay, it's another semester, another promissory note. And while it's important to be able to access that money, it's also really good to say, okay, how's that coming? Is it federal loans? Does it have some of those protections? Is it a private loan? What happens if I become disabled? How do I pay this back? So it does behoove us to become educated about that kind of stuff. And again, you don't want to just treat it like monopoly money. It's real money and you will have to pay that back. It's a pretty important thing for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. But there are so many resources for us out there. And I know a lot of early trainees may be so overwhelmingly busy and they feel like they don't really even have time to focus on these financial skills, but it really is important. And I would really encourage anybody to find the time to do so.
I agree. So, Curtis, talk me through for just a second. I know you've talked a little bit about where you're going with this podcast. The idea is you interview doctors who are doing remarkable and inspiring things all over the place. And with that, you hold a podcast. You have a website. Talk us through a little bit about what you developed as far as I know you developed a course and you've talked about eventually setting up a conference where you gather people who are on the cutting edge of a lot of things in medicine. Tell us about some of the other stuff that you're up to.
Yeah. Dr. Crane, I'll be honest with you. I am at a stage in this journey where the company is at a very early point of development. It really hasn't become an official business entity until about a year and a half, a year ago. So I'm learning every day about how I can better perform in business, how I can better solve problems for people in my niche, particularly medical professionals, medical students, et cetera. But where I'm heading with this is I want the physician's mind to be the go-to platform for ambitious medical professionals who want to thrive in their medical careers, but also thrive in other aspects of their life, financially, physically, spiritually, interpersonally. I want this to be the hub of self-improvement for medical professionals. And my problem right now is figuring out how exactly I'm going to do that. So I'm consuming as much knowledge as I can about how to perform in business, how to grow an audience, how to expand a platform, ultimately so that I can continue to have a positive impact on medical professionals. And I've learned that you're better off setting a very ambitious goal than settling for an average goal, namely because when you settle for an average goal, that's what 99% of people do. So there's going to be 99% more competition as you try to achieve that goal. But if you aim for the fences and you set a goal that seems to be impossible, there's far fewer people that are striving for those seemingly impossible goals. So the competition thins and you have a lot more opportunities. And ultimately, it's going to require the same amount of effort, regardless of which path you choose. So I've decided I want to set an extraordinary goal. I want this to, by 2030, be a platform that has impacted over 30,000, 50,000 medical professionals, physicians. And I want there to be a national conference where these high performing medical professionals can congregate and exchange ideas and learn from each other. And I want to just ultimately continue building this platform to just impact the medical professionals of this generation and of future generations, because I think there's a lot of potential to help people out, whether it's through networking courses. Like you mentioned, I'm in the development of creating my first course for teaching people how to network in order to accelerate their career success in medicine. I'm in the process of writing a book. I'm on the tail end of the final edits, hoping to get that published soon. Basically detailing my journey coming from an ordinary background to achieving what some people would consider to be great success. I'm always on that pathway to improvement, and I want to share that journey with other people. And with the podcast platform, I try to host exceptional physicians like yourself, Dr. Crane. You were one of my early guests, and for that, I'm very grateful. I want to basically give successful people a platform to condense the most important advice that they've learned throughout their careers and put that into an hour-long episode that somebody who maybe doesn't have the mentors, doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't have the resources to learn these things, they can learn right there through the platform. And ultimately, that's the goal, is to become the go-to self-improvement platform for medical professionals. And I'm learning how to continue to move towards that goal every day.
I love the ambition. I love the direction. Like I say, you've got an ambitious goal, but goals are meant to be a little bit ambitious. So I do appreciate that. The other comment I'll make about what you just said is I had another colleague once tell me that you don't have to be the world's best at every single skill. We develop a whole broad range of skills as human beings, and you really just need to develop one at a time and be just a little bit better than the person who's listening to you. So if I say, I wonder how medical students can do this, I may not be the world's best at this. I can listen to your podcast and I'll learn something. And there might be somebody else that's better at some aspect of it or better at the technical side of running a business, but you still have relevance and your voice is unique and inspiring. So I do think that's really cool. One of the other questions I wanted to ask you is you've interviewed dozens of physicians, many of whom are doing really unique and remarkable things with their medical experience and knowledge. What are some of the people that you have interviewed that have really inspired you? And what are some of the things that you have learned through those interviews?
Yeah. I think one of the most impactful guests that I've interviewed is Dr. Anna Lembke of Stanford University. She is the best-selling author of the book Dopamine Nation, where she details how our reward systems have been hijacked by the abundant pleasures that are available to us today. And she goes into great detail about how we can learn a little bit about our neuroscience and our brain chemistry to better optimize ourselves for fulfillment and success in life. And she's a brilliant mind. And I had the opportunity to talk with her about her journey and how she got to where she was today, how she published an international best-selling book and things like that, right? And that's just one example. I've interviewed founders of major educational companies like Dr. Jason Ryan, founder of Boards and Beyond. Boards and Beyond is that the resource for, of course, board exam studying that medical students use worldwide. It's very interesting to hear about how entrepreneurs like himself are able to conceive of an idea and then turn it into something so massive. Dr. Kevin Jubbal, founder of Medical School Insiders. He walked me through his whole journey, struggles he faced along the way and how he overcame those struggles as he developed a national medical education company. Dr. Antonio Webb. Dr. Webb is tremendously successful. He grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, faced great childhood adversity, ended up going into the Air Force and became a medic, went to war, came back, got into medical school. His story was a story of tremendous resilience. These people are people that I've admired since I was younger, like when I was aspiring to become a physician myself in college. These are the people that I was reading about and learning about, and having the opportunity to actually speak with them is just profound to me. And to really be able to hear their story of success, it's very inspiring, not only to me, but definitely to anybody who would be listening, because it boils down to these are people who have really made it to the top of their field, and picking apart how they've done so and learning from the lessons they've learned and the mistakes they've made and the challenges they've overcome. It's just awesome. And it just keeps me fired up to continue finding brilliant people to interview and to learn from.
I totally agree with what you just said. One of the things I've enjoyed about hosting a podcast is meeting other health professionals who are taking it to an extreme level. Not that they're trying to find a way to live life. We still have to be able to have enough time to take care of our families and take care of our physical and spiritual needs. But I've really enjoyed that part about meeting with physicians who have the same type of education and are taking it to an extreme degree. So I've loved our interview, Curtis. You've educated us. You really are an inspiring guy. Where would you tell people to go if they want to learn more about some of the things that you're up to?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn. You can just look up Curtis Wilkerson on LinkedIn. Happy to connect and talk further about anything. My website is www.thephysiciansmind.com. We're on Instagram as well at The Physician's Mind. You can reach us at any of those platforms.
Thank you. So as we come up against the timeline here, tell me, are there any specific other things you would want if you kind of put yourself in the role of somebody else who's contemplating medical school, saying, I'm not sure if I want to take this large endeavor on. I think maybe I could be just as happy doing something else. Pretend you're talking to my kids, because my kids are always in this. Do I do this or not? What advice would you give to someone who's grappling with that decision to say, should I pursue a career in medicine, or should I pursue something else? Because I could be good at either thing.
Whenever you commit to something, you are going to be sacrificing everything else that you could commit to. So I would encourage anybody to sit down with themselves and think, what is the greatest possible good that I can conceptualize myself achieving in life? Really sit down and think about that. Doesn't matter how challenging it might be. What is the version of you that has maximized your potential on this earth? And once you've solidified that idea, you have established your vision. And after that, it's a matter of relentlessly pursuing that vision. And once you've reached that point, you can break that down into smaller goals and attack those goals every day. So think about, what's the greatest good I can imagine myself achieving? And once you've created that idea, stop at nothing to make it a reality.
I'm so glad I asked you that. I'm going to have my kids listen to that because, and I think it's good for all of us. What is the greatest good I could have? Because our most finite resource is our time. We say that, but it is so true. You only get to be on this earth for a few decades at most, as it is. And your peak active adult productive years where you get to have an impact on other people and be in those most relevant active years, it's really just a few years. So I like what you just said, Curtis. Think about it and say, where can I make the greatest impact? What will bring me the greatest joy? How can I leave the greatest legacy for the time that I got to live on this earth? And then, like you say, you will have to sacrifice the other things that you could have done because you only get to do it once. And then go back and say, because I've made this goal, now I can put the little goals in place so that I can accomplish it. I love it. I think that's really good advice for all of us, no matter what stage of the career you're in, but maybe particularly relevant for someone who's thinking about taking the commitment to start something as grand and long lasting as a medical school. So thank you for that insight. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one little thing I'd like to add on that, for any endeavor in life, be it medicine or beyond, you need a specific goal. So set that specific goal for yourself. Establish that vision. We only, as humans, are going to experience positive emotion as it relates to the pursuit of a goal that we find worthwhile. So establish that goal that you're going to find worthwhile, because that's going to give you something that you can aim toward, but it's also going to give you something that you can run away from. If you know that you want to be a physician, you can conceptualize all of the character traits that a physician embodies, and you can begin to embody those traits yourself. And you can also think of what the opposite of that may be. And so as you're making decisions, okay, well, is this decision in line with where I want to be? If not, then don't do it. And it gives you that trajectory, and it gives you a sense of progress, and then in turn gives you that positive emotion that comes along with progression. And it's a really great solution to anybody who may be struggling with something as deep as finding meaning in their life, or just a sense of purpose. Well, I guess that's the same thing, but sense of meaning, sense of purpose, sense of progress. It starts with establishing that precise goal. And then once you've established that goal, like I said, you break it down into smaller chunks. Next thing, you wake up each day with a set of tasks that you can accomplish to inch closer to your goal. And it essentially will supercharge every day with meaning. And you can really develop a life of impact after doing that consistently for several years. So I'd like to just finish on that note there.
Thank you so much. Curtis Wilkerson, medical student extraordinaire. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I can't wait to see where your career goes with this type of impact and motivation already at this early stage of your career. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with our audience, and I hope you'll keep in touch.
Dr. Crane, it was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning into the Doctors Making a Difference podcast. And thank you for what you do to help your patients and your community. Your work truly helps so many people. We produce this content to help you have the tools you need to stay in medicine and to highlight the amazing work being done by physicians around the world. Please note that while I am a physician, and many of the guests on this program are also physicians or other professionals, the discussions on this podcast do not represent my employer or any professional organizations to which I belong. This podcast is for your information and entertainment only, and should not be taken as professional advice. You should seek appropriate professional advice pertaining to your own situation. Please check out more of our content on our website, doctorsmakingadifference.com. Also, please follow, like, or subscribe on your podcast player or YouTube channel, and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps to spread the message. Finally, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or if you'd like to nominate someone else to be a guest, please visit the website or email admin@doctorsmakingadifference.com. See you next time.